Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Historical Terminology. Yes, I am wearing a sweater over a Space Jam shirt. It's okay. Scientists have hobbies other than science. Hope you're enjoying the series. Today, we're going to be talking about DNA, which is the blueprint of us, right? It's what tells our cells what to do, and it's what tells them how to create all the different parts of us. So it's an incredibly important molecule, and we're just going to take the time to talk a little bit about it. So what is DNA exactly? Well, DNA is actually an acronym. It's short for deoxyribonucleic acid. And it's a complex molecule that's found in all living things. So anything that's a living organism has DNA in it. And that's one of the ways we distinguish whether something is alive or whether it's not alive, at least on Earth, right? And in the pattern that's kind of in DNA, it stores the instruction manual to create the essential proteins of life. So we'll talk about this a little bit in a second, but DNA is structured in a way that it can code messages, and those messages can be interpreted by proteins and then used to build new proteins, which is kind of how our bodies do everything it does. So let's get going talking about the structure of DNA, because that's one of the important facets of it. So first of all, general DNA structure. DNA is a double-stranded double helix. Okay, there's two different parts of DNA, right? And if you unfurl it, it kind of looks like a ladder, right? With two sides and rungs in the middle. And then DNA, to kind of make itself smaller, it twists and it becomes kind of like this circular staircase sort of looking thing. And I'll have a picture of that in a moment so you can see what that looks like. DNA's most important part, though, is its nucleic acid base pairs, and that's what codes for different things. So that's an important part of it. So this is kind of what the double helix looks like. As you can see, it kind of spins around and around. And nucleic acid base pairs are the parts in the middle, the rungs of the ladder, so to speak. And the DNA has 4 base pairs, and they're used to code messages. And the order of the base pairs is interpreted to build proteins. So here are the 4 different ones. We've got cytosine, guanine, adenine, and thymine. And as you can see here, cytosine and thymine are kind of similarly sized, and then guanine and adenine are similarly sized. They have these extra little groups on the end here. And that's important. These bases pair up with each other, and only certain ones can pair up with other certain ones due to kind of the forces, the molecular forces at work here. So that means cytosine can only be put next to guanine, and adenine can only connect in the middle with thymine, and that's important going forward. If you have the wrong one in the wrong place, that can cause problems. DNA's backbone, the thing that holds all that together, is sugar, which is called ribose, and a phosphate group. So deoxyribose is this sugar here. It's slightly different than regular ribose. And the only difference really is that it's missing an oxygen on this one spot here. That's what makes it deoxyribose. It's missing an oxygen. And those are connected with these phosphate groups that are really good at bonding together things because it has so many different possible bonding sites. So these deoxyriboses can be bonded together in a chain, and then the nitrogen groups in the center bond off of this as well, and it makes this awesome little ladder shape. So what does exactly DNA do? We've kind of talked about it already, but basically DNA is what allows protein synthesis to happen. Proteins are built following the codes in the base pairs, and each 3 base pairs code for 1 amino acid, and those amino acids get strung together to form proteins, which is what life is made out of. So this code in the DNA basically is an instruction manual. If you think about it like kind of like a Lego set. When you buy a Lego set, they give you all the different pieces, and there's an instruction manual that you go through and you read, and you're like, okay, I have to put this piece here, and this piece here, and this piece here, and then, oh, look, I've made a Star Destroyer, or whatever it is that you made out of Legos. It's the same way with us. The DNA is the instruction manual, and instead of reading it like words and pictures, they read it as sets of 3 base pairs. So they see, let's see, CAG, and they're like, oh, that means this one. and then TTG. Oh, that means this one. And they string them together and they make these proteins. And that's how all the different parts of our body are created, by following the instructions that have been stored for millennia in our DNA, which is pretty cool. So what happens if DNA gets damaged? That's kind of an important question, right? Because it's so important. What happens if something bad happens to our DNA? Well, the first big major bad thing that can happen, make sure you can see all the words here, is a mutation. So a mutation is when DNA gets copied incorrectly. And there's other ways for mutations to happen, but this is the most common way. And so it gets copied incorrectly because your DNA has to be in every single cell. So it's got to be copied over and over and over again. And that process takes a long time. DNA is 6 billion base pairs long. So there's going to be mistakes every once in a while. On average, a person has about 6 mutations in their body, in their DNA somewhere. That's the average. It could be more, it could be less. And some of those mutations are harmless. They don't do anything. It could be in a section of the DNA that doesn't actually code for anything, because there are long parts of DNA that just kind of blank space. Or it could be in something incredibly important, like the protein that makes it so that you can interpret visual light. So you can't see, then you're blind, right? Or it's the thing that makes it so you can produce insulin. And then if you don't get it, you have diabetes, right? So all those things can possibly happen from mutations. Cancer is also something that can happen when your DNA is damaged. And cancer, as we've talked about in other videos, is uncontrolled cell growth. And your DNA can trigger using proteins, right? That goes whether or not cells will continue to grow or not. And so cancer can be caused if the DNA is damaged then, right? If that section is damaged, or if it's just not creating the right proteins. And it can be caused by the sun or x-rays, and there's all sorts of stuff that can cause damage to your DNA. And, we're learning about more and more every couple weeks, right? So a report comes out, it's like, oh, by the way, plastic water bottles leach into water and they're bad for your body, right? They can cause cancer. Well, it's because it can damage your DNA somehow. Those sorts of things we learn all the time. So that's one of the possibilities. And then finally, genetic diseases, which are caused by changes in DNA. I'm going to move up just a little bit more. There we go. So for instance, Huntington's disease is caused by having one healthy copy of a gene and one unhealthy version. And Huntington's disease causes all sorts of issues, the deterioration of your mind, your physical capabilities deteriorate. It's a terrible disease that we don't have a cure for. And that's because changing DNA that is incorrect is incredibly hard. And if you do it wrong, right, you could cause even more damage. So are we trying to work on that kind of stuff? Absolutely. That's something that we're definitely working on. Is it something that we're close to completing yet? Kind of depends, right? A lot of people would say, yeah, we're getting a lot closer, but a lot closer doesn't mean that we're weeks away from being able to do it. It's still a long process out. Thank you again so much for watching our science terminology videos. If there's something that you would like to have covered, something that you want to learn about, please go ahead and tell me. Comment in the video, let me know. And then, of course, subscribe, like, and ring the bell so you know when more videos are coming. We're going to be trying to churn these out every couple of days so we can learn new things. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time we talk about some science.